Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Hello, welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Kris Roberts. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 6 million people. 6 million people have come across the border in the United States since President Biden took office. We're talking about people coming across the southern border, coming across through the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, even more coming across the northern border. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you really have to be careful about what is said, and then you have to ask yourself, why is it people saying this? Are people making money off what they're telling you? Because if you're being honest and you can't get anybody to advertise on your radio or TV station, it doesn't matter how honest you are not going to stay in business. Like, give me an example of how not paying attention. Well, I come up Main Street and I go by Cumberland Farms. Today, a gallon of gas at Cumberland Farms is $3.77 a gallon. But Cumberland Farms says, hey, use our card where we can keep track of all the purchases that you make, and then we can modify our ads so you'll continue to buy more. Well, so you take 10 cents off that Cumberland Farms, and now you have you're getting a great deal, or you think you're getting a great deal, because you only have to pay $3.67 a gallon. Okay? Well, you go up a little bit more, you go around the circle, and you go to West Street. Oh, and I go and see there's a gas station at $3.62, 5 cents better than the deal. Then I go farther up the road and I see another gas station at $3.57, 10 cents better deal. Then I go across the street, and if I'm willing to pay cash, I get an extra 5 cents off. And so I thought I was getting a really good deal. So here it is. Cumberland Farms sold you on their card, which then allows them to track you, what you buy, and all this other kind of stuff using the card. And you think you're getting a good deal because you get 10 cents off. So not only does Cumberland Farms profit by getting you to buy, but hey, they're jacking up the price. So if someone doesn't have a card, in certain places, they're 20 cents a gallon higher than another gas station on West Street, even if you don't use their debit card. So that's why you got to be careful. Okay, you remember when you were a kid or you were growing up and you were told, hey, buy the economy size, because when you buy the economy size, you make out you're going to get more product and you're going to pay less. Well, next time you go to Walmart or Hannaford's or one of the stores, double check that little unit price. And they're not being really honest with some of these unit prices, because one may be in ounce, one may be in pound, whatever. But in a lot of cases, the bigger the package, the more you're paying per ounce or per whatever that unit is. Because they know people automatically think if I buy a bigger package, I'm going to get more for my money. In some cases you do, but in more and more cases you don't. So again, you really have to pay attention and figure what is going on, who is telling me the truth. For example, now, the mayor of New York, Mayor Adams, is complaining. It's saying it's going to cost us $12 billion to take care of these immigrants, these migrants. He goes and says there's 100,000 migrants in New York. We're using schools, we're using parks, we're using public buildings, we're renting hotels out. We've got all these people, 100,000 in New York. He's declared a state of emergency. The governor of Massachusetts declared a state of emergency, saying they have over 20,000 migrants in the state of Massachusetts. I was reading yesterday, they're even moving some of the students out of UMass Lowell so they can use the dorms to house some of these migrants. Well, Massachusetts, in a way, has a right to shelter, basically, which says, hey, I don't have any place to live, in the state or the town where I'm in has to find me a place, whether it's a hotel or whatever. New York has a right to shelter. And you go on and go on and you go, hey. So, for example, you go 100,000, then you read this by CBS News, updated on August 2nd, 2023. Migrant crisis in New York worsens as asylum seekers are forced to sleep on the sidewalk. In Midtown Manhattan, asylum seekers are sleeping on the sidewalk outside the Roosevelt Hotel, which is now a migrant processing center for city shelters. Adrian Daniel Jose is among the dozen of people waiting to get services, leaving his wife and 3 kids in Venezuela. The 36-year-old said the journey to the United States was dangerous. He said he was robbed in Mexico, forcing him to cross the border with just the clothes on his back and a pair of taped together glasses. Okay. That is pretty descriptive, trying to say, well, this guy did a really hardship. He was robbed, he was stolen, came here with just the clothes on his back. You know, that's almost like one of those pull me up from my bootstrap type of essays that were written in the 1920s and 1930s to really go, hey, the Americans come to America. Was an immigrant. I came with nothing, and I'm going to grow up and go. New York City Mayor Adams said Monday, the crisis from this moment on is downhill. There's no more room. Since last spring, more than 95,000 migrants have arrived in New York, according to the mayor's office. To reduce the chaos, Adams and the mayors of Chicago and Denver are asking the Biden administration to expedite work permits for migrants coming to their city. Then it goes in, thousands have been bused from Texas to cities across the country as part of Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott's controversial Operation Lone Star. According to Houston Chronicle, Texas troopers have been detaining fathers traveling their family while children and mothers are turned over Border Patrol. This move is reminiscent of the Trump administration policy that separated some families. Back in New York City, Russia's Natalia, and I can't pronounce the name, are seeking political assignment. They arrived in Mexico after months of waiting, crossed the United States, and arrived in Texas on Tuesday. She told CBS News, "I haven't slept since I've arrived. I can't sleep in this situation. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for him." It's, you can see where they talked about Governor Abbott sending people different places. Oh yeah, Governor Abbott's controversial Operation Lone Star. So now we paint a picture of someone who's really going through a jungle, a rainforest, making over 1,000-mile trip, going to Venezuela, from Venezuela to Colombia to Panama, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, United States, making his way all the way up to New York City. Then it says thousands have been bused from Texas to cities across the country. So I paint a picture of this father and husband who's willing to risk his life to make it to America, make money, and hopefully get enough money to send back to the Coyotes to help bring his family to the United States. Basically, the vast majority of fathers would do what's necessary to make it better for their family. Everybody wants it better for their family. They want their family to be better than they have it. So they painted this picture of this individual. Then they go in and write the story and say 95,000 have come here since spring. And then the mayor said, we're booked up. And then it goes in and says, well, yeah, the governor of Texas, is busing thousands of them through this controversial program. Well, see, now what we've done, this CBS has created something. If you criticize, how can you criticize someone that's coming here to help his family? So what they have done is they broke it down to an individual. And once you break it down to an individual, then it's easy for people to have compassion. Also, if you come into the United States seeking asylum or whatever, you have to wait a certain while to get a work permit. To reduce the chaos, Adams and the mayors of Chicago and Denver are asking the Biden administration to expedite work permits for migrants coming to the city. The governor of Massachusetts said the same thing. Okay, and like I said, and then what they did with Nadia is from Russia, political asylum, and so then you can tie Nadia coming from that brutal dictatorship of Putin, who violently attacked Ukraine, and basically over 250,000 people from both sides have been killed or wounded. Those are reported numbers. It's now you got a Venezuelan, you have a Russian. Okay, the person from Venezuela is a really socialist, anti-American government who have some military ties between Russia and Venezuela, and Russia has been bringing some warships and some aircraft into Venezuela over the past couple of years. Okay, then we have the city. It was published yesterday, August 29th. Uncertainty for migrants as 60-day deadline to leave shelter looms. So when you come to New York, you get 60 days. More than 4,500 adult migrants living in city shelters are fast approaching a deadline where they will be ejected from what they currently live, thanks to a dramatic policy shift announced in July that sparked alarm and concerning among people and optimism in others. At a Brooklyn shelter, a converted commercial space, at least 533 residents have received the 60-day warning notices. The notices highlight cutoff dates beginning in late September, instructed shelter residents to go to Roosevelt Hotel, the city's major intake for newly arrived asylum seekers, to apply for another housing assistance option, which includes faith or community-based organizations, or placed in a hotel in upstate New York. So the governor goes, or the mayor says, okay, you've been here for 60 days, we get your notice, you're out of here in 60 days. But, so now we go in and say, hey, look at that. Uncertainty for migrants as 60-day deadline to leave shelter. And so people would go, wow, man, we're just going to throw these. We're talking basically, most of these basically are adult males. They've been there for 60 days. They'll be there 60 days and they'll go. But go back to the Roosevelt and we'll take care of you, and your 60 days will start all over again. Okay? There may be like Catholic charities, Lutheran charities, which are getting paid to take care of the migrants. So they may come and give you some room, a place to stay, or community base, you know, some of the cities or whatever. Or the little thing at the end, placement in a hotel in upstate New York. So upper state New York and other places said, hey, New York City, it's your problem that you guaranteed everybody a place to stay, even if they don't have any money at city expense. It's not ours. And there's been some court challenges and things like that. But what the city of New York is doing now is saying, hey, Best Western, Motel 8, hey, can you give me 10 rooms? I'll pay you the highest rate that's allowable, and you're guaranteed those rooms will be filled for the next 60 days. Hey, it's that time of the year where if you go on hotel.com and say, wow, normally this room is $240, but after Labor Day it'll be $1.10, $110. And so I own a motel. If I can get the $240 rate for 60 days in my slow period, I'm going to take it. Also, what snuck in here, it says at the late part of September, because you want to make sure none of this interferes with the Labor Day holiday weekend, interferes with colleges starting and parents and grandparents renting rooms. Okay, the migrants at the Jefferson Avenue shelters who spoke with the city shared the notices that relieved the New York City letterhead and said they don't know what to do next. It will be chaos, said Marquez, speaking in Spanish outside the shelter on a recent avenue. The 25-year-old migrant from Venezuela says he suffers from scoliosis. It makes it hard for him to work more than a few hours a day and difficult for him to save enough money to rent a place of his own. It's going to get ugly. Well, but then again, they try to paint a picture of this 25-year-old migrant from Venezuela who suffers from scoliosis, which makes it hard for him to work more than a few hours a day and difficult to save him for money. But the mayor and other ones want people to get work permits so they can work. Other part is, where are you going to find a place in New York City or around New York City? And this individual bunch is quite remarkable to make it from Venezuela to New York City with scoliosis. So it's a curvature in the back. And then the Mr. Ted Long, who played a key role in coordinating migrant response from his post as senior vice president, has touted the additional attention migrants get once they receive eviction notices. But there are more than a dozen migrants in 2 city-run shelters who receive eviction notices said they will offer buses or plane tickets to other cities. Nada, said 44-woman Barritos, who said he is recently hospitalized and was told he needs a gallbladder operation, but is delaying it while his housing's up in the air. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I just keep thinking about the winter. I don't know if we're going to wait, if they're going to wait until people end up in the streets. It's over at 28, also from Venezuela. I don't want to return to another shelter. I've been bouncing around various shelters and hotels since he arrived in New York City last October. Not everybody's lucky as me. I'm saving money to rent something because I can, he said in Spanish. I am thankful to the United States for all the help I've gotten. Duarte, 27, another Venezuelan, said he's already calling around to people he knew about renting a room and pinching pennies to be able to rent the place. He says his plan is to keep working, saving cash so when it's my time to leave, whenever I can find a place I rent. He snapped his fingers. And so you got a group that is complaining about, they're coming across pretty unappreciative, and because they have shelter and everything. And then you have these two young men who were saying, I'm not sitting here on my keister. I'm going to go out and work. You know, I don't care if I have to stand on a corner, someone come and pick me up, and I get work under the table, get paid below minimum wage, but I'm saving. Like the end says, I'm saving my pennies. Even if I just to rent a room, just so it can be my room, and so I don't have to live in a shelter. And so that's a part. And when you go in and you go, look, people are complaining. Some of these people are totally unappreciative. People are, if you say the wrong thing, you're not a nice person. You could be a racist. You could be a bigot, and so we're not that. Because one of the other things that are happening is, and the people in Chicago, the people in New York, people in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Denver, they're going, what about the homeless we have now? In certain cases, they're not paying attention to the homeless that we have now to find the rooms. And there are only so many rooms, and if you can't find those rooms, winter's coming. So what do you think is going to happen in come winter? The governor of Massachusetts is asked people to, if they have room, space available, to bring families, migrant families, into their house. What I gather so far, that hasn't been going along so well. So before, okay, since President Biden has been president, over 6 million people have been caught at the border. 6 million. Some papers will go, well, border crossings down 70%, border crossings up 120%, this, that, and it keeps going on. And so, who do you believe? Do you believe Homeland Security? The Secretary of Homeland Security? Do you believe the Border Patrol Union? Do you believe CBS or CNN or Fox? They all have agendas. Do you believe Catholic Charities? I have one here at Catholic Charities. And Catholic Charities calls them refugees. A refugee is a person who is unable to return to his or her country of origin because of a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a political social group. Okay. A refugee legally resides in a country of resettlement and is eligible for federally funded cash assistance up to 8 months. Refugees are resettled in the United States by the federal government and are afforded specific refugees. All refugees arriving in the United States will receive $900 when they first arrive. This is one time. Okay. For example, refugees who are able to quickly enter the job market can elect to participate in the match program, a federal program for refugees geared toward employment. And right here, this is from Maine, all refugees alive in the United States are entitled to 8 months of refugee cash assistance from the date of the U.S. The refugee cash assistance amounts vary based on the size. Single family, $230 a month. Family of four, $611. If the family qualifies for temporary assistance welfare offered by the Maine Department of Health and Human Services, they will not receive the RAC funds, but will immediately begin receiving TANF funds, which provide the same amount of funds as outlined above. Yet unlike RAC, there's a 5-year time limit, and they have access to Maine Care for 8 months. Following the 8 months, only those who are over 65 and on TANF can be eligible to be on Maine Care. And supplemental Social Security benefits are provided to refugees aged 65 and older in the amount of $674 a month. And so, so everything has a cost. And so, for example, I think Portland has a lot of Ethiopians in Sudan. So one's from Sudan. And of course, if you're coming over in your family and you can't have a job, you're going to qualify for welfare. And so why go through Catholic Charities and get paid for 8 months when you can go on welfare for up to 5 years, and then you could get basically Medicare treatment for up to the 5 years that you're on. And this is the one that surprised me, was that if you're a refugee and you come to the United States and you're 65 years old, you can get supplemental Social Security benefits from Social Security. So basically you can have someone who's never ever paid a single penny in the Social Security can come over and start getting Social Security, supplemental Social Security benefits. Okay, when we're talking about the governor of Texas shipping out refugees, migrants, illegals, immigrants, whatever your term wants to be, okay, it makes it kind of, wow, he's just shipping out like crazy. 95,000 in New York City. You know how many people that have been bused through Texas, the state of Texas, to New York City? A little less than 10,000. That was in the July numbers. About 140 to Los Angeles. Like 1,700 to Philadelphia. 8,700 in Washington, D.C. Chicago is a little bit more than 2,000. But the total number that came out of this bus was about 22,000. The state of Texas charted 500 bus loads out. Okay? 6 million people were apprehended at the border. Most of them, they were put on buses by the Border Patrol and dropped off into cities inside of Texas. So, say for example, 6 million. Let's, for the sake of argument, only 2 out of every 3 were sent back over the border, which we know that's a ridiculously low number. But if 2 out of 3 that were apprehended were sent back over the border, that means there was 2 million people. 2 million people. Where did these 2 million people go? If the state of Texas put 22,000 on 500 buses, you don't get 22,000 people on 500 buses. Well, if you get big buses, you jam them, you can get it, but they'll be pretty packed. But the security guards on all of them to keep people from going. Okay. But now we talk about, say, 2 million adults. Okay. Well, 2 million, that would be, yes, that would be adults. That could be children, that could be family members, that. But now over to the side, in that same time, over 400,000 single children, unattended children, crossed the border. 400,000 of them crossed the border. Where did those kids go? If you ask the federal government has no idea. The federal government contracts out to businesses to house and educate some of the kids, because some of the kids have no family members here. But a lot of the kids are coming across the border and they're disappearing. Where are those children going? We're talking about in New York, oh, we got all these adult males. They don't know what to do. They've been sitting on their butts for 60 days, or sitting outside a hotel. Some of them already been arrested for sexually assaulting other people. But what about the 400,000 children. Not much goes, but and this one right here, this was an old one from February of 2022. It goes, over 2 million migrants were arrested while illegally crossing the southern border in 2021, and another 2 million are expected in 2022. About half of these migrants are turned back to Mexico under the authority of Title 42, the protection from COVID, which allows migrants to be turned away for public health reasons. But President Biden let the other half in with little more than a piece of paper saying they will show up at immigration court to pursue a claim for asylum. Many do not show up, but where do they go? Reuters had a profile of one of these migrants last week, and his story sounds typical of most migrants who venture north in search of a better life. Amelia Domingo and her family paid smugglers $10,000 to help her travel out of Guatemala through Mexico and then across the border in Arizona last February. Like most recent immigrants, Amelia immediately surrendered to the Border Patrol agent, knowing that under Biden's policies, she would not be returned to Mexico, but would instead be helped on to her final destination, Enterprise, Alabama, where her illegal immigrant sister, Rosa, was waiting for her. Amelia spent about a month in the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services, which is how long it takes for her sister, Rosa, to send HHS documentation showing that Amelia was her sister and that Rosa had a home for her to stay. No effort was made to establish Rosa's citizenship. Rosa sent $800 in plane tickets to HHS. Amelia was transported to Enterprise, where for $1,500, Amelia was given a Social Security card and a driver's license from a broker. Okay, woman crosses the border, tells the Border Patrol she has a sister in Alabama, and Border Patrol turns up HHS, says, hey, no problem, we just got to verify that you're sisters and you got a place to live, good to go. Just send us a ticket and plane ticket and we'll put her on the plane and she's on her way. Hey, no problem at all. Rosa has saved up $1,500. So as soon as Amelia gets to Enterprise, she goes in. And then, hey, I'm just in here. I'm from Guatemala, bang, bang, bang. Hey, no problem at all. Here's your new Social Security. Here's a Social Security card. And here's a Alabama driver's license. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I had some guys who the Social Security numbers were there, and they get nailed by the IRS for underreporting their income when the IRS checks at different times. Then Amelia uses a fake ID and a Social Security number to get a job at a chicken processing plant where she works 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for $10 an hour. This may not sound like much, but it's more than double what she was earning in Guatemala. Enterprise welcomes us, Amelia's older sister Rosa, who arrived illegally over a decade ago and has 2 children born in the United States. Rosa said, "The jobs are just waiting for us." At some point, 2 social workers did visit Amelia's address to see if she needed help enrolling in school, but the sister said no help was needed. "School isn't for me," Amelia said. "I have debts." No federal immigration officer has made any effort to follow up on Amelia. There are literally hundreds of thousands of Amelia in the United States right now working at food processing plants, washing dishes, and otherwise doing the jobs Americans won't do for an hour. And until we start turning people away at the borders, more will keep coming. Okay? So when you go have your chicken McNuggets or chicken fingers, and you go, "Wow, man, I can get these really cheap." You have chicken processing plants knowingly hiring illegal aliens with false Social Security numbers and false driver's license. And, okay, what you might not have guessed on here, but if you listen to it, Amelia is school age. And what happened, she said, "School isn't for me." She says, "I have debts." Yes. She's going to pay off that $10,000 that she used smugglers that get paid here. So now that chicken processing company is making a lot of profit off the blood, sweat, and tears of these illegals. We as American people don't mind because, what the heck? I like going to McDonald's and getting 5 chicken McNuggets for $2. I like going to another place and getting hot wings for 50 cents because that's where the people are disappearing to. And what happens is the people coming to the United States, it isn't the governor of Texas busing out 22,000 or Arizona or New Mexico busting out or Florida busting out. The people are going where people will pay them the jobs so they can pay back the human traffickers. But Amelia was lucky. She had a family member here that could take care, a family member who knew all, a family member that could translate and everything for her. Because what a lot of people don't realize, Guatemala is an Hispanic country. Guatemala speaks Spanish. No and no. Guatemala, the majority of the people in Guatemala are Mayans. They're Mayan Indians or Mayan indigenous people. And they speak indigenous languages. So it is really tough for them to communicate. So the chicken processing plant would have to get people that could speak those languages and translate. Okay? They know it. There was a couple of chicken companies manufacturing, major ones that got nailed years ago because they had a vice president whose job was to get illegals. They work in the slaughterhouses. They work a lot of places. They work in the beef packing slaughterhouses. They get hurt. They don't care. You know what? Hey, you're going to complain, I'll call immigration on you. They don't get any workman's comp. They don't get anything. A lot of them get paid under the table. I can go around Keene here and see a bunch of construction projects, both outside and inside, and the people who are doing the jobs are not from Keene. You can look at their license plates. You can see them when I was walking over. The car was jam-packed. They were coming out of a project. It was jam-packed, and they were being taken away with an out-of-state license plate. Again, it's because, and a certain group of people are using and abusing the immigrants, making the money. It's no different what we did with the Irish on the railroads, or the Chinese on the railroads, or the French Canadians in the Lowell mills, or the New York shirt factory, the things that we did to immigrants. We have a history of using and abusing and sucking as much value out of immigrants and then throw them away, legal or not. Here's the one here's in Massachusetts where the governor says we got an emergency. Walter was 16 years old when he started work in the overnight shift factory in central Massachusetts. He came from Guatemala on his own to join his family, desperate to escape a poor, violent country where two of his childhood friends were shot to death. Walter works from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Walter trims plastic with sharp knives and reveals hot mold stuck inside machine, retrieves, and then went straight to Framingham High School blurry hour, often falling asleep in class. He later got a job at a massive commercial greenhouse, cleaning machines that planted and harvest produce, sometimes working until 5 a.m. In warm weather, he worked 50 hours a week, using his earnings to pay rent and help his family back home, as well as a 16-year-old sister who recently arrived here. Walter is one of the increasing number of young migrants making the long, dangerous journey to the United States, not just in search for a better life, but to earn money for their families. Often work long, late hours at grueling jobs in violation of child labor laws. The government, the Department of Labor, I think, was just is going to file cases over 300 different employees. McDonald's around the country had quite a few. The independent McDonald's were around the country employing kids in dangerous jobs, underage kids, doing different ways. A recent New York Times investigation revealed how widespread the problem has become since the pandemic deepened the depression, funding more children to an overwhelmed U.S. system that has to protect them. The young migrants, many who come from places where child labor is prevalent, are working in construction and slaughterhouse, as well as producing goods for major brands. The New York Times, and they're pretty liberal, almost as liberal as you get. The Times found children packing Cheerios and Cheetos, making auto parts used by General Motors and Ford, and baking dinner rolls sold at Walmart and Target. Sometimes, Walter goes, now he's 19, sometimes I feel just like No Way Forward, he says in Spanish through an interpreter. So he's been here for 3 years, and he hasn't picked up Spanish very well. I mean English. And so he's kind of stuck. Walter asked not to be fully identified or name his employers, protect others currently working there. And so in Massachusetts, but they're going in. Massachusetts has fewer large factories, but still migrant children are processing fish in New Bedford, roofing houses in Boston suburbs, trolling deep in the night in greenhouses in Central Mass, and working in restaurant kitchen everywhere. 2,700 unaccompanied minors arrived in Massachusetts last year. Nearly half are from Guatemala, and more than 25% under the age of 15. These children have it rough, but they're the lucky ones. No one seems to want to talk about how many of these 400,000 unaccompanied children that have come into the United States have found their way into the sex traffic industry, being exploited. There's a couple articles about the prostitutes and the sex traffic institute in New York City, and it's horrific. It's hard because people are finding ways to make money off the immigrants, whether it's a business, where it's an NGO, whether it's a government agency. People are making money off these. That's why President Biden will not do anything to stop it, and that's why President Biden will not provide funds to New York and Chicago and Philadelphia and DC, because if he provides funds to them, he's going to have to provide funds to all the other communities around the country that have had a massive influx of immigrants. And so sad, so sorry, New York, Chicago, DC, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Denver. You are not getting any more federal dollars. And so that's it for today on this. And it just sucks that the way how these kids are getting abused. You got kids that should be in junior high school, should be in middle school, but instead some of them are in sex slavery, some of them are working in slaughterhouses, some of them are dying. Totally uncalled for.